Power does not always announce itself. Often it accumulates silently, through structure, timing, and the manipulation of perception. The victories that endure are rarely the most visible. They leave no parades, no headlines, no immediate evidence of triumph. And yet they determine the shape of institutions, markets, and states. Welcome to Fiscal Historian. Most people assume that influence and success are the products of strength. The largest armies win the wars. The companies with the deepest pockets dominate markets. The loudest political voices set the agenda. Direct application of force seems intuitive, immediate, measurable. This is why the logic of brute strength persists in public understanding. But this perspective is incomplete. Direct confrontation is costly. When resources are limited, uncertainty is high, and mistakes are irreversible, direct engagement becomes a liability. Under these conditions, systems emerge that favor patience over aggression, positioning over scale, and perception over sheer power. Advantage accrues not through raw strength, but through structuring the environment in which decisions are made. One of the earliest and most rigorous articulations of this logic comes from Sun Bin, a strategist and general of the Qi state during China's Warring States period in the 4th century BC. To understand his influence, it is necessary to understand the world that produced him. The Warring States period was defined by fragmentation. Multiple states, Qi, Wei, Zhao, Han, among others, competed in near-constant warfare. Borders shifted unpredictably, alliances formed and dissolved rapidly. Armies were expensive, supply lines fragile, and manpower scarce. Success could not be measured solely by battlefield victories because a single miscalculation could destroy a state. In this context, strategy was not an abstract discipline, it was a survival imperative. Sun Bin inherited a lineage of strategic thought. He was a descendant of Sun Tzu and trained under the hermit Guiguzi, known for cultivating analytical minds rather than solely warriors. Sun Tzu articulated principles, the value of deception, the avoidance of unnecessary conflict, and the importance of psychological leverage. Sun Bin operationalized these principles, developing a practical system for winning under constraint. At the core of Sun Bin's thinking was the recognition that conflict occurs under incomplete information. Armies could not observe every movement. Leaders could not anticipate every decision. In these conditions, advantage was derived from structuring perception. If an opponent believes you are weak, slow, or disorganized, they will act in predictable ways that create openings. This approach is evident in the Battle of Guilin. Qi faced a stronger adversary in Wei, led by the general Pang Huan. Direct engagement would have been suicidal. Sun Bin's response was methodical and layered. He first executed a southward march, away from expected battle sites. To an observer, this appeared as hesitation or retreat, yet it was repositioning, a manipulation of perception designed to create overconfidence in the enemy. Sun Bin then feigned attacks and staged withdrawals. These movements were not intended to inflict casualties, but to communicate a narrative. Pang Huan, observing apparent weakness, advanced aggressively, committing forces prematurely. Sun Bin's forces then targeted critical locations, forcing Wei to fragment its army. Only when conditions aligned did Sun Bin select the battlefield for decisive engagement. The ambush at Guilin exploited both enemy misperception and structural vulnerabilities, producing a victory disproportionate to Qi's numerical strength. Underlying this strategy were several systematic principles. Deception operated to shape perception and induce predictable mistakes. Indirect action focused attacks on weaknesses rather than confronting strength head-on. Concentration of force was applied selectively, at moments and locations where advantage could be decisive. Psychological manipulation reinforced these outcomes, using staged retreats and visible vulnerability to encourage misjudgment. And flexible command structures enabled coordinated action across multiple fronts, aligning logistics, intelligence, and timing. The story of Tianji's horse racing further illustrates this logic. Faced with competitors stronger in every category, Tianji did not attempt to win all races. Instead, he allocated resources strategically, conceding predictable losses and concentrating strength where advantage existed. The result was overall victory, achieved not through superiority of assets, but through superior allocation and timing. This same principle, sacrificing the non-essential to secure the decisive, underpins Sun Bin's military strategy. Sun Bin's methods were codified in treatises that influenced subsequent compilations, including the 36 strategies. Over time, these ideas migrated beyond the battlefield. As states stabilized and bureaucracies expanded, direct military conflict became less frequent, but competition persisted. The logic of indirect strategy adapted to governance, commerce, and institutional management. Bureaucrats used misperception and timing to manage rivals. Merchants structured markets to exploit overextension. Political actors shaped decisions before they became public. To see this logic in the modern world, one need not look to armies alone. In finance, capital allocation frequently mirrors Tianji's strategy. Investments are made selectively, with deliberate exposure in some areas and calculated restraint in others. Risk is managed by exploiting asymmetries of information and positioning resources where leverage is greatest. Losses are tolerated in less critical areas to protect structural advantage elsewhere. The principle is identical. Indirect positioning outperforms raw strength. In business, similar patterns appear. Companies avoid head-to-head confrontation when possible. They enter adjacent markets, form strategic partnerships, and manipulate perceptions of capability. Market outcomes are shaped by signals and timing rather than direct force. Competitive advantage is achieved not by dominating every transaction, but by orchestrating the environment in which competitors make decisions. Political strategy also reflects Sun Bin's logic. Coalitions, lobbying, and agenda setting create conditions in which outcomes appear inevitable. Influence is exercised through procedure, through constraint, through shaping incentives and expectations. The most powerful decisions are those that feel organic, chosen, or inevitable, not imposed. Systems, rather than individuals, drive results. Modern military doctrine preserves these principles. Asymmetric warfare, intelligence-driven campaigns, and cyber operations prioritize disruption and misdirection over brute engagement. Strategic advantage is derived from constraining adversaries' choices, manipulating perceptions, and concentrating effort at decisive points. Direct occupation or attrition is secondary. The battlefield has changed, but the logic remains consistent. What makes indirect strategy difficult to recognize is its normalization. These systems operate invisibly. Incentives appear natural. Outcomes seem self-inflicted or coincidental. Observers misinterpret structural design as luck, chaos, or corruption. The mechanics of advantage remain hidden beneath everyday operations. This produces a structural misunderstanding. Most assume that visible strength correlates with success. They overlook the slow accumulation of leverage, the orchestration of perception, and the timing of interventions. Power is rarely exercised where it is most apparent. It is exercised where resistance is minimal, where outcomes can be shaped predictably, and where systems magnify small advantages. Indirect strategy is efficient, and efficiency explains its persistence. It reduces exposure, externalizes risk, and converts intelligence into reliable outcomes. But it also fragments accountability. No single actor appears decisive. Success is systemic rather than individual. Outcomes feel inevitable, obscuring the orchestration that produced them. This is the unsettling truth. The systems that govern modern markets, institutions, and states are rarely the product of raw force. They are the product of structure, timing, and manipulation of perception. They outlast individuals, dynasties, and organizations. They persist because they are subtle, systemic, and resilient under constraint. Sun Bin's insight was not a call to deception or dominance. It was a recognition of operational efficiency under constraint. It was a method for converting intelligence, timing, and resource allocation into reproducible advantage. Once embedded, these principles guide behavior quietly, invisibly, and persistently. Understanding this does not require speculation. It requires observing patterns, tracing causality, and recognizing the role of indirect mechanisms in shaping outcomes. The same logic that governed the warring states now governs financial markets, corporate strategy, political institutions, and modern conflict. Constraint persists, timing matters, and leverage outweighs force. Power is not always obvious. Scale is less decisive than positioning. Victory is not always visible. Outcomes are engineered through structure, patience, and the manipulation of perception. Sun Bin's legacy demonstrates that the most enduring systems operate quietly, shaping decisions and defining results long before they are recognized. If this perspective added clarity, consider subscribing to Fiscal Historian.